Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another extremely entertaining video. We're going to talk about functions in this video. So, functions and methods in C++. So, functions and methods the name can be used somewhat interchangeably, usually, but a lot of times that's kind of inaccurate. Methods and functions are slightly different, and we'll cover kind of why that is. So as you can see in the code here, I've defined something that may look new to you. We are defining a person class. So the details of this are not exactly the focus of this video, but this will help demonstrate the method and the concept. And so this, as is noted, would be a method, or also called a member function. Okay, so you notice it is part of this class here, right? And so this is a very basic class. It's defined as a person. So class is supposed to be like a type of a thing that is meant to be instantiated or turned into an instance of that thing, right? So think of like a blueprint for a house. So the blueprint is the class. The house, once created using the blueprint, would be the instance of the house, right? Something like that. So in this case, it's a person. And so right now, all we have is a name. That's the only important part that we're focusing on. And as you can see, this is marked as private. So that means that someone outside of this class should not be able to call this and see this name. Then we have this public section, and this is a constructor. Constructor, similar to the house analogy, is the thing that's producing from the class, producing the instance of that thing. And so again, the house kind of works well for that analogy. Is you have a blueprint, you have a constructor, like a construction worker, building that house, right? So that's what this piece of code here is basically doing. It's saying, hey, we're in a person class. This is how you get a new person. And here it is expecting you to pass along the person's name. And as you can kind of see, we're saying, okay, this name defined here, which is private, we're taking whatever they pass in, and we're going to set that name equal to what they gave us. So again, kind of simple, not really the focus of this, but I just want to walk through it quickly so it's clear. Then you have what we were interested in, the method. Okay, so what's happening here is we're saying we want to return something, which is a string. Okay, so the first thing that you see there is the return value. Then this is the name of the method, so this is what we're doing. You try to be descriptive. So get name is pretty basic for something like this. You're getting something, and what is the something? The name, right? So you want to be concise if you can, but descriptive, so that hopefully the name of what you're doing makes sense and is clear without a whole bunch of explanation required. And so in this case, we're saying, hey, for a person, if I want to know their name, we have to say, hey, get name, and then that will give us the name, right? And here, again, it's marked as private. So we wouldn't be able to just see the name unless we say, hey, please give us this name. Okay, so we're asking very politely. We don't want to command. We want to say, please, please, person, may I have your name? Be oh so kind of you. Okay, so that's kind of, set up for the rest of the things we will talk about. So function versus method. So function is the same idea as this, but it's not associated with a class. It's not tied to anything. It's just a free floating thing. Like this. This is a function. This is your main function, right? But we will create a new function, right? So here we are predefining the function that we're going to use, and we're going to say void. So void is a special keyword. That means we're not going to return anything, right? We're just going to do something, but there's no return value, so don't expect anything. And we're going to just say print this. Okay, so we're going to just do this to print out messages, and we're going to say string, and we'll say msg for message. And there we go. So this is the pre-definition. So this would be a function prototype or definition something like that, or declaration. There's another name for this, but I cannot remember it at this moment. My apologies. Okay, so the idea though is that you have to have this listed before it is called, or you have to have the method, or excuse me, the function defined before it's used. So in this case, we're going to put the function down here, and that's why it needs to be here, to give main a hint. Say, hey, you can see what's in front of you, what came before you, and there's going to be something called print this that you should know about, okay? So later, you know about that thing, and you can call that. All right, so that's kind of what that's doing. So down here, we're actually going to make this thing. So we're going to have the same signature here. You say print this, and we have to match it correctly. But this is where we're actually going to have the declaration. We're going to show what this is actually doing, what this function is going to do. And we're just going to do something simple, and we're going to say something like this. There we go. That's just a simple demonstration and useful for this, okay? So we have our function, print this. So what do we say? Let's say print this hello, just to show what we're doing here, okay? So let's compile and execute. Again, if you're not familiar with this, this is the compilation. This says if that's good, then let's execute. Let's do that. Okay, so message, hello, okay? So what happened here is print this is referencing this piece of code, okay? So we're saying, hey, there's something called print this that takes a string. Here we find print this that takes a string, and so this is what's being executed, right? So the code knows that these two things are the same. These are, this is the definition for this, but you can see how this is reusable. So now we can put print this wherever we want, and it will always just print this code, and it will always have this formatting. We don't have to do this multiple times over and over, okay? So this is an example of a function, okay? So let's do another function. Let's do something that returns a value. Let's say int, and let's say add this, and we're going to say int num1 and int num2. And we're going to say return, and we're going to return the sum of these things. We're going to return num1 plus num2. Okay, very basic. So maybe you've already caught on to this while I was typing, but what do we need in order to make our system happy here? Let's go here, and in this case, we're not going to try to, actually, let's just go ahead. Let's leave it as is. What will we get? We should get some form of, no, it is fine. Oh, because we haven't called this yet. That's why. Let's try this again. So let's say add this 1 plus 2. Okay. What do we get? An error. Look at that. What is add this? It's not declared, right? We don't know what this is. What are you talking about, right? Why? Why don't we know what add this is? As I mentioned before, we didn't put it here, okay? So main only knows what came before it in this case. And so this is before main. So this, it knows that there's something, you know, coming up that should be defined like that. But down below, we did not do the same here. Okay, so that's the thing you need to remember in C and C++, these predefinitions. Okay, so there we go, and there we are. Look at that. Let's try again. Oh. Too few. Oh. Well, look at that. I goofed too. That should actually be a comma, not a plus, because down here we have the plus. I was goofing. Alright, but let's check it out. There we go. Now we've gotten rid of our error, right? So again, very quickly to demonstrate, to show that it wasn't that error. We get rid of this, same thing. It was not declared. Doesn't know what it is. We reinstate this. Magically, it knows what we're talking about. Okay, so we're not doing anything with this value yet, but it's still, it understands, okay? So now we're going to do a nice little thing. We're going to wrap this in this call, we're going to say print this, and we're going to say that. Okay. But actually that won't work. Do you know why? Can you think of why? I know why, and this is going to make it, the nesting, rather inconvenient. So let's go back here. So the reason why is because this returns an int, not a string, and this is expecting a string, so we have to convert it. But to nest them so many levels is probably not a great idea. So let's do something like this. We'll say int val equals, add this. Okay. So now we've set this to a value, right? Now we will go back to where we were. It was to print this, but now we will say toString val. Okay. So these are great examples. So toString is another function that does something, right? What does it do? It converts what you pass it, converts it to a string. So what we're saying here is val, which is an int, not a string. We're saying val goes to this function, toString. The result of toString is a string, which then is passed on to this, which is expecting a string, to print this. Okay? So what should we get? We should get a message below. These are our expectations. We're going to see message hello, and then we're going to say message 3. So let's take a look and see if we're correct. Look at that. We got it right. Okay, so that may be a little convoluted, maybe too much at once. I don't know. You tell me, but that's the idea. The reason that these are so great now is because now we can just say, you can use this all the time. Add this and add this, right? So say we wanted to do something super fancy. Bigger val equals add this. We'll say 1 and 4, which should be 5. So that will return one number, and then add this, which will return, say, 2, 4. So that's going to be 6. So all of those things now should be added together, right? So 1 and 4, that's 5. And then we got our 6, so we should be getting 11. Right? So you can kind of see, even with just one, you can now turn it into this thing that is piled upon itself without having to write the code multiple times. You can just reuse this one thing because it now exists, right? So let's print out here big val. Okay. So what will we see? What's our expectation? We will see this, our message hello. We will see this, our message 3. And then this, our message 11. Is that what we'll get? Let's take a look. Da, 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 da. So hopefully that makes some sense, right? We're getting this value by calling this function. So it does what we asked. We passed it 2 numbers. First number, second number. We're adding the first number and the second number. And then we're returning whatever that was. Whatever the result of that is, we return it. And we know that this will be an int because these are ints, right? So int plus int equals int. And here you can see we're doing this, but this returns a value of int. And this expects a value of int. And then another value of int, right? So we can call this and this. This gives us an int. And this gives us an int. And then we feed it to this, which adds those together, right? So again, kind of, you know, recursive almost, but hopefully you get the idea. So again, functions. This is a function. So let's go on to a method, okay? So let's go ahead and comment this out, and we'll make a little gap here, and we will instate this. So what are we saying here? We're saying we are instantiating now a person, okay? So here, as above, you can see, like in this commented out code, you have an int, and then the name, and then sometimes a value. It doesn't always have to have a value, but in this case, it would get a value, right? So here, we're doing the same thing. We're saying person, which is the type. So here, it's an int, which is a primitive. This is a class. This is an object that we're going to be creating. And so this is that class of person. So that's the type, right? So that, and this is the name, P, just for short. And then we're saying we want a new person named Bort. Make sure they have plenty of license plates. Okay, so up here, you can again, we'll review our person. We have a public thing called person here, which is the constructor, right? That's going to give us a person, right? We will create a person, and we are expecting the person's name. We will set that name, and then once this is complete, we will now have a new person object with a name. Okay? And so down below, we have this, okay? We're saying, hey, we've created a new person named Bort. Here, we're going to say print this. Let's print out Bort's name, right? That should be Bort, right? So our expectation here is we should get a MSG from our print this, right? So we're saying print this, and we're passing along the result of this call, which is on the person saying, give me his name, please. Return name. All right, so we should see MSG : space Bort. Ready? Da, 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 da. Just as we expected. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. It's not breaking your brain yet, but this is, again, a class, which then creates an object, right? So this is the constructor, excuse me. It instantiates an object. So this is now an object. This is the blueprint, if you will, of this object. Okay, so this is the blueprint. This is how we say make us a new one of those things using the blueprint. Okay, once we have that thing, we can say, hey, what's his name? When we get that name, we can then say, hey, print this using our function, right? And these are all reusable pieces that are just wonderful. So if we saved these, say we save this print this and add this, and we had these saved, we could never have to write this code ever again. We could just paste in this code and it would work as long as we had our predefinitions of the functions here, so that main would know about them. But aside from that kind of preparation, that's what's happening. Okay, so a lot of the libraries that you're pulling in and using, that's simply what's happening. Is somewhere there's a bunch of code written for you, and we're saying, hey, can I use that code, please? And then I'm going to perform these actions that someone's already defined for us. Very, very nice of them, right? So yeah, so that's kind of the gist. We will cover a lot more complicated stuff about functions and methods and things of that nature in classes in different videos, but that's kind of the basics, kind of an introduction, and hopefully that made some sense and was useful, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Thanks for stopping by.